Hi y'all. Hello. Hey Marco. Hey Kirptaki. Hey guys. We are gonna start shortly. Alright, so while we wait, I just dropped in the chat our form to grab some Xmetric as usual for being here live. Get your Xmetric, and at the end we'll also say thanks to our judges and speakers and send them some extra Xmetric as well. But for all of you in the audience, the form is in the chat. Hey Elvis.
Hey Marina. Hi guys.
Out of our judge, we just need a song slinger out of our judges, and then we can get started. And there you go. Hey JJ.
Hey guys.
What's up?
On my mobile, my computer seems to be having trouble with the desktop apps, so we'll see how this goes.
We'll do our best to make it work. Let me know what you need, screen sharing, any of that.
Yeah, cool.
Cool. Let's get us started. We're about 3 minutes past. It's generally a bad internet day in the world, it seems. We're gonna roll with it, do what we can, and close out our first ever Networks week. Let's dive right into that before we start with the teardown and the dashboards. I want to say thanks to everyone here and also who might be watching the recording for participating in the first ever MetricsDAO Networks week. We have seen a lot of interest in the Join a Network channel, which was really awesome to see for folks looking to join a network, to find a group of like-minded analysts and like-minded reviewers and so on. So really awesome to see that. Keep that coming. Keep filling that out. And if you have a network, be sure to check out the database of willing and competent individuals if you're looking to add more folks to your ranks. And we also have been running and are still running today until the end of today our network creation awesomeness. So if you are creating a network, let us know. That computer is trying. I hear that
It's
today.
really trying.
It's doing its best.
Myself.
Yeah, so if you made a network, let us know. I have on screen share the documentation page where you can fill out the survey and your network will pop up on the list, which as I was looking at it today, I realized that the new network I might have created did not populate into the list. So there might be a little technical issue there that we'll look into. But in the meantime, if you created a network and you filled out this survey right here, and you don't see your network down there, you can always let us know that you made one in the Networks 101 channel. We'd love to hear, and I'm going to work on fixing this today. We'll see all the new networks that are created populate down there very soon. Yeah, networks. We're really excited about networks. You've heard us talk about networks all week, and we'll keep talking about networks and also doing things with networks. So we're really excited to see that evolve. So whenever you might have a stroke of inspiration for a new network, whenever you want to get together a group of data friends and do things and badge your network, please do. We'd love to see more networks in especially V2 of the Metrics app that's coming soon. And we are really committed to giving a chance to every network that gets created to prove itself, to showcase itself, to earn on the Metrics app now and especially V2. So let's keep the networks conversation going, even though Networks Week is coming to a close. We might run more in the future, a little alpha, don't know yet, not promising yet, but that's definitely not off the table. So let's keep talking networks. And speaking of networks, we have 2 networks here with us today, being esteemed judges for Dashboard Teardown. We have Eager Beavers, represented by Elvis, which is Eager Beaver's second Dashboard Teardown. Elvis's second Dashboard Teardown, welcome back. And we have Jack from Pine, his debut as a judge on the Dashboard Teardown, showcasing how Pines do their reviews as a review network as well. Pine do a lot of things, as you know. Pine are awesome analysts, and also they do review on the Metrics app. So Jack's here to showcase a bit of how that's done. And of course, from the very first Dashboard Teardown until now, we have Sunslinger with us. Thanks, DJ, for being here. And let's get started. We have 6 submissions today. Why don't we jump right in? And I'll also start dropping in the chat while the judges are judging some links, which are our default review rubric, which networks are welcome to use or introduce their own. I'll drop the documentation for reviews and kind of scores and how they translate from the old system to the Metrics app. And I'll start dropping more links kind of in the process as well. And the format, just before we start, the format today is a little bit different than before. We're trying out a new format where one judge will review one dashboard. And then if other judges have strong opinions, they're welcome to weigh in. Otherwise, that's going to be the bulk of the feedback. We wanted to really streamline the process and really let each reviewer's opinions shine for that dashboard. So let's get going. We have, I think, first up, Elvis from Eager Beavers and the NEAR dashboard.
Okay, so what we can see on the screen is a dashboard from Haji, who gave us a really nice introduction about USDT and the NEAR ecosystem, and how USDT adopted NEAR. So I gave him high points on both visuals and the content for this introduction. We can go on to the next step. Unfortunately, most of the good things with this dashboard end with the introduction. If we look at the first step and the first figure, this is a general problem with all the figures, that the y-axes are not defined and the legends are not really useful. An overarching problem is that he is using stack bar graphs to display very disparate quantities like transaction quants and unique number of traders and number of swap platforms, which is not meaningful to be added together. If we look at the right side with comparing similar measures, there at least the different quantities are discernible. Not just the largest can be seen, but there is no meaning to connecting these points for the different currencies. So line graphs are not really appropriate there either. An even bigger problem is that while the title are suggesting that we are talking about swap volumes to or from USDT, there are no actual filters in the queries that ensure this, so it is totally inaccurate. It is not talking about what it says it's talking about. Yeah. So let's go on to the next tab. Here we also have this problem that we are adding transaction counts and the number of traders. Here, at least, for some reason, in the query, the filter was set. So this is not completely inaccurate. A moment. Yeah, but here also using the bar graph is not a good idea. And on the right side, we can see transaction counts volumes now, at least the kind that he wanted to display, but these would have been a lot better shown in a table or as numbers. There is no rhyme or reason to comparing them. And in the bottom pie chart, if we scroll down a bit, he wanted to show a distribution of tokens being swapped to from USDT, but he is adding the raw token amounts with that. So here again, we are not comparing apples to apples. It should have been the USDT values of these token amounts instead of the raw token amounts, if he wanted to show this. So all in all, it's pretty inaccurate. The next step would be the same thing, but instead of being swapped from USDT, change to swap to USDT and then the insights, but as the data was inaccurate, the insights themselves are not really meaningful themselves, so I gave pretty low points for this dashboard, somewhere around 42% out of 100. So any comments or questions?
Yeah, I think I agree with your looking over this pretty much.
Just a quick comment on process for the future. We should have it so that if people submit their dashboards for a teardown, they come to the teardown. Might be a good way for folks to really learn and take the feedback going forward.
We've got these written out in detail, so they can read it, but yeah.
Otherwise, that was a really good walkthrough, Elvis. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Elvis. Yes, definitely point taken on having folks here who submitted dashboards. I think we have Mr. DC and possibly others as well, but we'll keep playing with the format, take that into account for future sessions. All right, I think, Elvis, you have another, and this is for DC, or I think once known or somewhere known as Mr. DC. I might be wrong. Please correct me if that's the case. But yeah, we have this here.
That's my name. Yeah, it's actually my name. The Mr. was a username, just a username. Yeah, it's actually
Gotcha.
my title though.
Gotcha. All right, DC, thank you for submitting your dashboard. And we have Elvis as well from Eager Beavers reviewing it. Let's get into it.
All right, so first comment is that the first step is empty. Not ideal. You should use this valuable real estate to summarize our methods or most important findings or something. Otherwise, a general comment, this is, I would somewhat deduct points for this if this was a submitted dashboard to a challenge. You are not writing any written out insights. I understand that this was not necessarily meant to be viewed as a dashboard with insights, but this is how we usually give points. So that's a comment that if you want a full score dashboard, you should make your insights out of the data that you found. Anyway, we don't have points like in the previous dashboard that it is generally accurate, as far as I can tell in its data and findings. It is basically about the wallets and traffic to and from the Binance wallets on different chains. The chain itself is a parameter in the dashboard, and the date range it views as well. So that's a positive point, that there is some modularity here. With tab 3, I've got some points of criticism that, for example, you're using this donut chart with 10 million bars. It's generally not a good idea to use a donut chart with more than 3-4 parts, because it is only useful for giving a feeling for the rough proportion of the participants. If you have so many, you might as well collaborate them together in another portion. Another piece of criticism would be
My question for the deposit distribution, where we have the multiple donut charts, where you have USDT, BUSD, and USDC. So the reason why I decided to do that was there were actually for the bar charts, like those data are very small. It's not seen. That's why I used the donut charts. That I had no alternate. That's why I used the donut chart.
You can show a lot more and with a lot more legibility if you would use a bar graph, and possibly coloring them individually, but not necessarily, and then they could be better read, and their proportions could be better read as well, not just the largest ones. It is, I think in the DAO and maybe in general, it is, this is a kind of general advice not to use donut charts as much as possible. About the active deposits, this name active deposits is not really helpful. If we scroll down a bit, we can see that there are some backup on the active deposits chart on the right. Roll up a bit there. So there are some custom categories, but it is not clear that what does this mean. If we look at the query, it turns out that this is the size of the deposit or depositing wallet, but there is no definition given that how big a deposit the wallet has to make a category. So category definition somewhere would have been useful for the viewer. Scroll to the bottom, please. Here, the last piece of criticism I could give is with this daily flow table. It is grouped by both date and Binance wallet and the symbol. This is too much. There are 706 pages. You should have aggregated at the very least the different Binance wallets so that we could see at a glance for the different symbols, the deposit withdrawals and balances. And I think it would have been more useful than it could have also been given a graphical representation as well. So,
Okay, so I wanted to ask, for the last one, does it mean that for every Binance wallet, as if there is Binance 14, there is Binance 14, and then all the deposits across Binance 14 will be shown in the row with deposit withdrawals, the balance, and then the symbol, particular symbol. So there will be several categories of Binance wallets, let's say 14, 15, 20, that like that in that row, so that the range will be limited for like 1 to 3 pages, like that. Is that what you mean?
as it is, there are 700 pages. If it were up to me, I would first of all look at the balance of flows in a single graph or table daily to Binance, because that's a question someone might ask, that given the recent FOD with Binance, how much has been actually withdrawn? And that question would be even more interesting to ask on all chains as well, that we look at all the chains daily, how much were the deposits and withdrawals daily, and then we could see the effect of the FOD. If we want to go into to the individual currencies, I can understand that someone might be interested in that. One can do that daily and then look what was the daily withdrawals and deposits balance for each of these symbols. However, splitting them up by Binance wallet as well, that's a bit too much, I guess. I think that's just too much information. I confess I had not looked in the query in detail, so I may have misinterpreted this.
Okay, and then with the active wallets, I heard, or maybe I misheard, that you said like there was a little data given. I categorized them into plankton, shrimp, turtle, shark, and then whale. As in to understand users, the category of users that deposit funds into Binance. So the whales are users who have like $1 million plus. Yes, those are the category of users who are making deposits. So I wanted to understand the type of users that make huge deposits or withdrawals from Binance. Yes.
I think that is very fine. That's a good idea. I just said that if you put yourself in your viewer's point of view, you don't know what is the definition of these rims and whales and whatnot. So it would be helpful to actually explicitly write it out somewhere, either as a table, as fun little emojis with text, but somehow display that what these categories mean. Otherwise, it is shrimp and turtle and whatever is meaningless if you just look at the graph.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah, it's really clear now. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you for submitting. Any questions, comments?
Thank you, Elvis. I would just want to shout out the chat and all the extra tips added and provided in the chat by Sunslinger and Marku and others. So check it out if you're not reading it right now. Good tips for DC as well. Anything to add, anyone on DC's dashboard? Any judges' opinions that you want to express? Okay, sounds like we're good to move on to Mercury's dashboard, reviewed by Jack from Pine Analytics. And there we go.
Yeah. So I looked over this dashboard, and so starting at the introduction tab, I thought Mercury did a great job introducing the dashboard. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see it. The dashboard shows what the topic is, all the specific texts, definitions, and methodologies. And I think it was pretty thorough. No questions left unasked after reading the introduction about what the dashboard's about. Can you scroll down a little bit on it, just so they can see kind of what it is? So for points given for introduction, I gave full points here just because it basically defined everything and was very thorough in what I went through. And then I guess shifting to the next part of it, could you click on the first tab? So the first thing I noticed, this dashboard has a lot of graphics, so it might take a while to go through all of them, but there's some trends that I noticed that I wanted to comment on. So the first thing I noticed, I deducted 20 points, 5 points for visualizations. Could you scroll down a little bit to see some of the graphs? So one thing that, scroll down a little bit more, there's two I want to solve that. All right, here, it's good to solve. So the first thing that I noticed is that a lot of the graphs, these two don't show it specifically, but a lot of the graphs show a lot of redundant information. Like many of the graphs compare X's on both number of swap transactions and number of swaps. And I thought that data was kind of redundant because, like, usually in almost all cases, a swap and a swap transaction are pretty similar. And like, they're very highly correlated. And the only time that you're swapping multiple times in a transaction is when it's like specifically written into like the contract and not a contract. So I think it would be better just to pick whether you want to look at number of swaps or number of swaps transactions rather than creating graphs for both of them. So that's one reason I deducted points on visualizations. And then the second reason I deducted some points on visualizations was that many graphs were kind of hard to understand what insights were moving from the graph. So for example, like trade volume group by platform, I thought that the putting median volume, average volume, max volume, and total volume all on the same chart wasn't very useful solutions because they are all of like different orders of magnitude. So then when you put them on a log chart, it's pretty hard to understand like what data is actually coming out of that chart. So it's when you're looking at that data, it probably would have been more useful to look all of the texts comparing total volume in a single chart, max volume, average volume, and then maybe average and median could be on the same graph. And then when I looked at this graph to the right, that does like number of transactions per trader, I think that also is kind of, and it compares swap volume per and number of transactions per trader on the same chart, which are kind of like not really ways to compare against each other. And I thought that showing like number of transactions per trader, like I think sometimes you got to think about like what data, like, or what insights do your metrics show. And I think like the metric, like the number of transactions per trader is just a metric that spikes really high randomly when one guy or a few guys just trade a lot, but like probably better shown in different ways. So I think we visualizations, you have to be really intentional about what information you want people to draw from your graphic. And I think like a lot of the graphics here did show accurate. I looked through all of them and they did show like accurate information, but it was hard for me to draw like relevance from it. So then moving on to insights, if you just scroll through a little bit, I thought that there was good like insights on like what the showing, and then a few graphs, or like I don't know, about half of the graphs. You can just keep kind of scrolling through this. Half of the graphs like had blurbs under them saying like what the data represented and stuff like that. And I think that's good, but I also think that you kind of need to provide context on why this information is important. I think this dashboard kind of struggled to kind of like it showed like what is happening with a bunch of different metrics, but it struggled to kind of bring those metrics together and have a clear view of like the information as a whole. So that was kind of my comments on the insights, and I deducted 15 points for that. Because then if you go to the summary of this dashboard, you can see that the summary was that basically Trader Joe was like most popular DEX. And that's like useful, but like there definitely could have been a more like nuanced conclusion given all the different information pulled. And then for the accuracy category, I went through a handful of SQL, and to me, it didn't seem like there was any problem with the specific accuracy of the metrics, but it did seem like a lot of the metrics were not necessarily useful for insights. And then for the last category that I looked at, professionalism, I deducted 10 points for professionalism because I thought that there was can you scroll up to the top to show the enter boxes? I thought that these, although they were defined, these were a little bit overwhelming to have this many inputs on a dashboard. And I thought that like, if you just gave this to somebody, and that they'd be kind of, I don't know, they wouldn't be too happy with like the presentation of it, and they'd be kind of annoyed trying to figure out what all these different things do and trying to figure out what like to what input boxes. And then on top of that, if you go to the specifics page, tab, right next to trades, yeah. A lot of these graphs, like the specific data of different like things when you enter in different values to filter. It's kind of, at least in my opinion, it's kind of hard to determine without thorough like what metrics they were filtering out related to, and there wasn't a lot of text around it, so it was kind of hard. Like the presentation was weak. So then that nets out to a score of 55. So that's what I would have given this dashboard. Actually 45 points, 20 for visualization, 15 for insight, none for accuracy, and 10 for professionalism. And yeah, that's my review of this dashboard.
Thanks, Jack. As a fellow judge, I want to strongly agree on what you said on the number of charts and kind of size of the dashboard. We talk frequently at teardowns about how there's a tipping point, right? There is a point after which additional information becomes too much, and too many charts and too many things kind of shown and from I guess very similar angles and just slight variation. So I'd really want to encourage Mercury to distill to the few charts. I think the limit in the reviewer rubric that's in use right now is 20. Let me see. But yeah, there we go. 1 point removed for every chart or graph beyond 20. If you're able to see my my screen right now, but there is a tipping point. Please, if you try to distill your findings into the few charts that make an impact and the few charts that communicate. Let's say one chart communicates that one thing that you're trying to show. That's my little addition here, and I'll repost our rubric, or I should say our default rubric, in the chat as well. Yeah, and just to add what's being discussed in the chat right now, Sunslinger points out that if additional charts beyond 20 are really bringing value, there's an exception for that. And it's ultimately up to the reviewer, of course. But just something to keep an eye on, to keep in mind. All right, anything to add, anybody on Mercury's dashboard? And thanks, Mercury, for submitting it for the teardown. And if there's nothing else to add on this dashboard, we have Diamond's Sloppy Steaks and Sunslinger, if your deck is working in our favor.
Is it? Question mark?
We can hear you.
Hey,
Yay.
Awesome.
Let's do this. Can you see my screen as well? Or your?
I will be, that's still loading. So maybe oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah, this one has been fun. You want me to lead off on this one, Marina?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Cool. So, things I really like. I mean, the first thing I really like is that it's got 70 hearts. Just a reminder, folks, you can heart other people's dashboards for a chance to get them into the top 8. Or if you're in the Flipside Premier League, the top 40, which helps them earn. The longer you're in the top 8, the more money you earn. So continue doing dashboards for challenges, but take a look at our top 8 as well. Some things I really like here. A very, very, very simple explanation of what this dashboard is. That's really powerful. It doesn't take a lot of time to write. If you don't know anything about Flow, now you know a little bit more, and immediately you know what this dashboard is. So that's a great explanation. I also really like that there's history, methodology, credits, and resources. All of that is here. It's extremely well organized, but it's also not the first thing that you see. So if you want to scroll back up a little bit further, yeah, absolutely. Let's go like the teardown dashboard. That's a great idea, Marina. We have super basic charts distinguished by color. We have really basic facts. These are the things that you get right when you load into the dashboard that give you a reason to read further. So you're not blitzing people with information before they have any reason to care about sloppy steaks, for example. First, you're giving them the key takeaways. I really like big number charts for this. It's super simple for someone to wrap their mind around, and then you go deeper over time. That's a really good way to bring people further into what you're trying to tell them about. Give them the most important stuff, make it really easy for them to track. Take a moment to pour one out for my flow bags. 46 cents is brutal. And then you provide the additional information so that a reviewer can check methodologies. So someone who's new to the dashboard can check it so you know more about the project. This is a really good way to structure something. Let's scroll down. Just something I want to point out really quick about on the right-hand side. These interactive guides, up a little bit too far. I really love when people link their Twitter profile. It's super nice as well. You don't always have to go deep on methodology. Just saying, here are the tables that I use and here's what I use them for. This is sufficient. That's the minimum. So it's always enjoyable for me, like to see how people are doing things, but this is plenty. Scroll up a tiny bit. Yeah, this is just a nice little value add as well. And sort of a personal touch. Here's how you do stuff. And that's just another value add. Like if I'm not familiar with the project, if I don't know anything about sloppy steaks, now I can go and click on some of these links and learn more about the project. This again ties into we're making it better and easier for readers. And that is what you always want to be thinking about. First of all, am I showing something interesting? Am I showing something that's accurate? Is it easy to follow? Is it easy to read? The headers and the structure do a great job here with all of that. But through all of this, is someone who's looking at this going to find it valuable? Are they going to get what I'm trying to point out? Is it easy for them to read, easy for them to explore? Super, super valuable. This dashboard does it really well. We can check out the other tabs as well. Cool. So this is something that Mark Hugh is pointing out, and here's what it looks like in practice. Mixed media, so tables along with big number visual and donut chart here. It's, you know, when you're reading a dashboard, especially if you're reading a lot of them, if every visual is the same type, it gets really hard to follow. This does a good job, especially with a table that you can, you know, like basically occupies an entire side of the screen. That's a good way to present a lot of data quickly, but it pairs that with, here's the most important things you know. Here are the top holders, and then if you scroll up a little bit, Marina, overall number of holders, and that's it. That's simple. And what this does really well is it gets a ton of information across very quickly in the table. And I agree with Mark Hugh, tables are a great way to handle high volume of data, but it keeps this tab from being overwhelming as well. So you don't have to keep scrolling, you don't lose, you don't have to say, oh, what was up top? I have to go back and reread it and lose my thread. This does a really good job balancing depth of insight with, or depth of information provided with just the most important things. Again, really good way to structure something so that readers don't get lost. Let's go to the next tab. Actually, no, let's do Toucan's donation a tiny bit. That just rendered for me. I'm also getting a little bit of feedback, Senberg, so I'm going to mute you. Just a quick reminder, folks, to mute yourself if you're in a loud place. So this is, there's more information here than I thought, but what's nice here is there's very large dividing lines. It takes a little time to do the formatting, but really solid, so that if I care more about Toucan's donations and, you know, overall donations and how they change over time, I can look at this section. If not, I can just skip it. So you're giving the reader a sense of control, a sense of power. They know exactly what they're looking at. In this case, I know exactly what I'm looking at. This is a great, great way to use headers. Let's scroll down a tiny bit more. Yep, here again, very powerful use of mixed media. You've got active traders, and then it breaks down active versus cumulative. I'll say this, like, a lot of CEOs I've worked with love cumulative charts because it makes the numbers look good. They go up and they go to the right. It's not always a great way to show actual insights. It can be a shade misleading, but it is a good tool to have in your tool belt in case some future boss's boss asks you to show growth. It is one way to do it. In this particular instance here again, really good use of big numbers to get the most important information across, and then supplemented by data visualizations. We can go and finish off the other tabs. Cool. So this is a good, you know, simple way to explain a little bit more. A lot of people will, in their introductions, just pack all the information to, here's what the project is, here's what the marketplace is, here's what the blockchain is, et cetera, et cetera. This is, again, here so that if I want the information, it's super easy to find. But if I don't have to read further. I'm saying it a lot, but it bears repeating because a lot of people don't do it. Make it easy for people to find stuff if they want to, but don't jam it down their throats Instead, present the most important information in a way that's easy to find. And Diamond does a really good job with that here. Also, shout out, like, nice visuals. I like when there are emojis that are, or not emojis, when there are GIFs that are well used. So that does a good job here. Mark, you're ridiculous. Let's go to the last tab real quick. I don't want to dive too far just in the interest of time. And this is another example of, here again, this helps the reader if they want to learn more. It gives them something to do. It's a great thing to end anything you're writing or anything you're putting together with a CTA, a call to action. And this is a call to action. This says, all right, you've read everything. What do you do next? This is a great example of, well, now, if you want to go do something next, here's something that you can go do. It's not strictly required for analytics work, but it does highlight a really important principle. When you conclude something, give your reader a takeaway, something that they're going to go do or something they're going to read up on, something to think about, some explanation of here's why this is important. So good job here. And again, it makes it fun. And I can't stress enough, it's always fun when you're reviewing something and there's cool stuff to look at. There's something surprising, a little bit of animation here, which is really nice. I give this dashboard a stellar. It does a really good job. We didn't talk about too much about the form of data presentation, but although it's apparently simple, the mixed media, using big numbers to get the most important information across, making the charts different colors for their lines, like all this stuff shows a ton of attention to detail. And I really appreciate that as a reader. I appreciate it as a reviewer. This dashboard is interesting. It tells me what I want to know. It doesn't shove it down my throat. There's not too much information on any individual tab. This does a really good job, in my opinion. Definitely interested what other reviewers have to say also.
I have nothing but agreement. I love this dashboard, love the visualizations. I think the bit of kind of fun and entertainment takes off, the edge of data being serious for any dashboard, really. Yeah, agree with all of it. Jack, Elvis, I think Socio has joined as well. Anyone else?
Yeah, I was just gonna say this dashboard is a good example of why creating like clear visuals can like lead to less work and more results, and like just trying to like make visualization out of everything. It's better to like just pick a few things that you think are relevant and interesting and highlight those rather than try to hit every single metric about a specific topic.
I can only agree as well. This is a nice example of why less is more, and the right kind of less is more.
Amazing. Thank you, GJ and all, for your review. Thank you, Diamond, for submitting your awesome dashboard. Let's keep it rolling. We have 2 more dashboards, which I've taken on to give you some feedback on. So let's proceed. And I would, on each of these, love to hear what other reviewers have to say as well. Let's dive into first Mariah Carey's dashboard on Flow NFTs. I'll give you a quick walkthrough since in this case it's the same person doing the screen share and reviewing the dashboard. So I'll play with the format. I'll walk you through a little bit. So we have the intro, a bit more about NFTs, and I'll get into review in just a second here. Some summary stats, and then we have the marketplaces tab, the NFT collections. There we go. I don't know if it's loading it. There we go. We have per collection analysis, and we have the author page. So let's dive right in. I think to start with the introduction tab, we have a kind of a bit of a contrast. We have 2 different examples of how this is done with the previous dashboard that Diamond did and the Mariah Carey's introduction. There is let's see. So there is a way to introduce the reader to your dashboard and kind of the chain and all the foundational stuff if they're not familiar. I would say this dashboard in particular kind of maybe goes a little bit too introductory. We talk about and we think about a lot who the audience can be, who the audience is, and generally, even though like there's things to be said on that, but generally the consensus is that the audience probably knows, what an NFT is. They probably kind of have a general understanding of Web3 things, maybe blockchain things, like they would know that NFTs are non-fungible tokens and so on. So with the introduction here, I would really strike the balance if you do want to give some background information of kind of maybe not going too intro-y, and if you want very kind of beginner readers to have something to kind of peruse, link things up. You've seen with Diamond's dashboard, there was kind of a section with links with additional information, tutorials, documentation, kind of leading the user directly there if they are a little bit more beginner, if they want to catch up on things. But I think for the purpose of this dashboard, this is a bit too deep, and I'm gonna reiterate what Sunslinger likes to say on these teardowns, is that you have a limited time to make an impression on the reader. You have like that limited real estate and also limited kind of time and mental perception time, right, to grab your reader, to let them know what this dashboard is saying, to kind of to give them the first impression. That's exactly what it is. It's your first impression of your dashboard. And I think going into this dash, I would kind of I would have to look for the data and look for why this dashboard is being created and what it's trying to say. So I'd go more compact on the intro and kind of less beginner, and really, link it up. Like there's no limit to that. And I think to kind of go from there and tack onto that, I think the general information stats, almost like after reading the long intro, I wouldn't expect the general information or general stats to be down here. So that kind of buries them down a little bit, right? So either I would maybe suggest either putting them in a separate tab, or just lead with this stuff. A little bit of a intro, easing the reader in, and then just lead with something like this. Here's the summary, and for your kind of for your insights, for your explanations, try to stay away from just kind of reiterating the numbers that you see. One is so the reader either won't read it, or these numbers also change if you have a dashboard that refreshes, which I think Flipside dashboards now you can refresh like on your own as a reader. Correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of use this the real estate where you give insights for the why a little bit more, so, or the context, or this is this number and it means something, that kind of stuff. And I'm also not reading the chat. Yeah, I do have to agree with Sunslinger in the chat that the header is like the outline, the format looks good. And yeah, I'm just reading the chat and agree that about flow could just go to the bottom and insights to the top, so that someone who does want this, they can still find it. But it's not you're not leading with that. You're not using your first impressions for this. And yes, the refresh button. I'm not gonna click it on this one. I don't want to derail the rest of the teardown. Let's move on to the next tab. So here on this tab, and actually the one after that as well, the marketplace and the NFT collection, I want to echo kind of something that we also bring up a bunch with charts that look similar, charts that show very similar things. Like if you go on the marketplace tab, which also a side note, it would be great if you kind of format and capitalize everything consistently to give kind of a cleaner impression on the professionalism front. And things like this, just try to spell check, type check, just give it another read after you're done with it. These small things like typos and spelling and capitalization go a long way of like making an impression of, you know, something really polished and really clean and really well formatted and error free, versus maybe a bit less so. But getting back to the visualizations, here you see, and I see 4 charts. I see one's total transactions, total NFTs, like these. If you do include both, I want to understand as a reader why, right? So you might say that, you know, there's a lot of transactions or a lot of NFTs, but they're bought in kind of bulk, several per transaction, or kind of what is the significance there of having this separate? Or if none, maybe you could just include one and say that you looked at the data for the other metric and it looks similar. And yes, agree with Sunslinger in the chat that a network, your network, when you're in it, can really help you kind of give a second pair of eyes, proofread things, give kind of that outsider perspective when you are when you've been looking at your dashboard too long. And another quick one here is that I've seen scatter plots used in this dashboard and several dashboards today. I would personally, so with scatter plots, there's a very specific use case, right? There is scatter plots usually show something like correlation. So you have, you know, maybe size and you have time, and you're showing that with time size grows or something like that. Here I don't really see the use case as clearly. I think for me the scatter plots used kind of just with a time series, generally with a time series, but in this case in particular, kind of are more crowded than giving information. And the same goes for how many marketplaces are included here. I would with something like this, with the scatter plot graph, I would narrow down which marketplaces you want to show and maybe why, and then play with the different data formats, maybe bar chart, maybe bar chart. But yeah, we all talked about today about donuts and pies, which are generally not the greatest way to show information. But here's something, either in the numbers or bars or stuff like that. Yeah, and I agree with Elvis in the chat that here, so I guess it's not really apparent what size of the bubble represents. So with scatter plots, I would kind of really restrict them to a very specific use case where they're effective, where they're actually very communicative. Moving us forward, since we are kind of closing in on time a little bit, same here with, I know the dashboard actually says that these graphs are pretty similar, but there's a reason why they're there, and it's still kind of not, looking at them, it's not super clear. It's again transaction versus number of buyers. These seem like they are highly correlated amongst each other, so they show very similar results and so on. And the same with the scatter plot here. And I love the author tab. I would do a bit of a summary. I think Elvis said that for another dashboard as well. I would love kind of some insights here, but I really like how the Twitter is accessible and it's easy to reach out to the author. So overall, for this dashboard, I would go between, I would say in the Likert scale, average to good. So I would go kind of high average to low good. So 8 or 9 out of 12 in the old system, and maybe very high 60s or low 70s in the new, in the out of 100 system. And we did have one more dashboard. What's the consensus, everyone? Do we do one more, or do we unfortunately wrap it up and save it for the next time? And also any feedback on this dashboard from any other judges.
I tend to agree. I just wanted to restate something that is good here. I think the gradient here is really good. It can be reused for any flow dashboard. It immediately makes me think, oh, wow, this person put some effort into this. It's visually attractive. And then, the comments about the author tab as well. The previous dashboard, Diamond did a good job with this too. Like, make it personalized. People really like personalized stuff. You see this in a lot of the influencers, yeah, sometimes they're influencers because they're talking about how to make 100x on various tokens, but also a lot of them have done a really good job with a profile picture or an NFT or an NFT community that people associate with them. They have a particular visual style that they use. There's a particular, even just like a voice or a way in which they tweet. Everybody has their own style. If you develop yours, then you can go a long way. Yeah, Mark Hughes is a really interesting one. I use Mad Lads or my monkey sometimes. The thing is, at least this is just my experience with Mark Hughes. It's like when I saw that for the first time, I was like, "What the heck is this? I have no idea. I've never seen this before." Which got me to do a little bit of research. And if someone is researching, as a result of you, if they're digging in more into why did you choose what you choose, then you've won. Then you've got them to think about you. And when people are thinking about you, you've made a ton of progress. Also, it's funny, all right? It's just humorous. And humor is an incredibly powerful tool to get people to connect with you and your work. So brand is a really good, summary of it. Style is another one that applies to dashboards as well. But put your fingerprints on it. Or as an old coach of mine used to say, make them feel you. And Marina, I probably just burned some of the time we were going to use to do another dashboard. So first of all, apologies. Second of all, let's continue with this next time around. And as always, thank you all for coming. If you're here, you're learning what you need to learn to really take your dashboards to the next level. And your feedback, as always, is super helpful. And a big thanks to our review networks and our judges. Also appreciate your work.
Huge thanks to our Eager Beavers, Elvis, our Pines, Jack, and of course Sunslinger for these reviews. Thanks to analysts who are here to hear your feedback. We're gonna try to, I think, double down, like DJ said, more on having the analysts here to receive the feedback. So stay tuned for that tweak to the format next time. And yes, there's likely to be a next time. Just another spoiler here, just spreading out spoilers left and right. We did have another dashboard submitted. We're gonna carry that over to our next teardown. Thank you, Amir, for submitting it. We did not forget it. It will get you your review. And any parting thoughts from any of our judges before we wrap up?
Awesome submissions from everybody who submitted. Great idea to kind of get some feedback on it. And then if anybody is interested in joining the Pine network, we are running bounties weekly on the MetricsDAO marketplace, and the winner of every bounty that we run there gets an NFT and can join our reviewer network. So, yeah.
So there you go. This is how to join Pine Network if you are coveting it. Thank you, Jack. Elvis, I think you unmuted. Any parting words from you?
I just wanted to thank you as well for providing the opportunity to represent Eager Beavers here, and likewise, if somebody feels up to it, submit your entry and we will consider it.
Thank you, Elvis. Thank you, Jack. Thanks, Sunslinger. There is a link in the chat for Join a Network, which is a channel where you can apply for networks that already exist. You can also create your own network. You can find out how in Networks 101, which is another channel that I'm linking right here. As always, don't forget to claim your X metric for being here live. The forum is just reposted. That'll close shortly after, so grab that X metric. And yeah, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for this Networks week. We're starting to get more traction in our networks, and we can't wait to see what networks do in the future. Talk soon, everybody. Have a great day.